Modern chickens are effectively born into a genetic prison. Their bodies are their cages.
They lead short, miserable lives. Pain and suffering is their everyday existence.
Fast growth rates have been reported to be responsible for not only the most, but also the most severe welfare problems seen in broilers today.
Chickens are actually quite a lot like us. They like to play, to explore, to forage, and to perform a whole range of natural behaviours that are really important for their welfare.
So chickens are sentient animals, which basically means they feel emotions, such as frustration and pain. But sentient animals are also thought to experience positive emotions like pleasure and enjoyment.
They have individual personalities. Some are cheeky, some are playful, they're incredibly curious, and they simply want to live their lives doing what comes naturally to them. Perching, exploring for food, interacting with one another.
If I was asked to design a sporting facility for chickens, it would look a lot like a typical factory farm. The birds are crammed in together, often in terms of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands.
Chickens are the most numerously produced animals worldwide. There are around 66 billion slaughtered for meat every year, and this rise is expected to continue.
The term broiler means a meat chicken, or chicken produced for its muscle tissue. Laying hens and meat chickens are two completely different breeds. They look very different and they behave very differently.
Since the late 1950s, breeding companies have managed to halve the amount of time it takes a chicken to reach the same slaughter weight, and they can achieve that in around 35 days, so 5 weeks.
I think meat chickens have become so specialised to maximise protein in order to maximise profit, but it's bad news for chickens and it's bad news for consumers.
They are genetically selected to grow so quickly that their legs hang above. Painfully deformed and struggle to move.
The fact that the birds are growing fast means they're putting a lot of strain on what's a very immature skeleton. So they end up with leg issues, lameness issues.
The lack of activity as a result means that they're often in regular contact with the wet surfaces they rely on, which can lead to further skin problems.
So unfortunately it's a very circular problem that the birds grow fast, they sit more, they get lesions, and then they sit more. So really what motivates the broiler chicken towards the end of its life is just getting up and eating, and they really don't do a lot more.
We wanted to see what this continued drive and push for faster growth actually had on the health and welfare of these birds.
We wanted some hard scientific evidence taken over time of the way different breeds behave.
We ran this trial to basically assess the health and welfare characteristics of the 3 most commonly used broiler breeds around the world. But in addition, we also wanted to see how that compared to a commercially viable, slower-growing bird.
Ultimately, we wanted to find out if slower-growing chickens lead healthier, happier lives.
These birds were kept from basically day old, so we got them at the hatcheries when they hatched, up until a slaughter weight. The pens the birds were kept in were a higher welfare pen than you would definitely find anywhere commercially or even in a lot of other experimental settings. So the birds all had a perch in the pen from day 0, so they could start perching at any time. We also put fewer birds in the pen, so a lower stocking density is what we would say. So each bird had more space to move around.
8:17, 8:30.
This trial basically confirmed what we had already suspected, so we, in essence, fulfilled our hypothesis that the slow-growing breeds did have better welfare than the fast-growing breeds. Slow-growing breeds were more active. They did more behaviors like perching and movement and foraging. They also had fewer lesions on their feet and their hocks. They maintained this level of activity. They didn't behave like the fast-growing breeds of that weight. They stayed active and mobile. They were still perching. They were still, hopping around and trying to get on my shoulders when I was doing stuff.
17,854, guys.
As the person who was with the birds probably the most throughout the trial and who saw them every day, I found it a bit sad to be walking into my shed, especially towards the end of the trials, and to have 3/4 of the birds, so three fast-growing birds, all basically mainly sitting, and also they started to pant a lot as well.
This study provides really compelling evidence that slower growing chickens are a better choice. It's better for the chickens, but it's also better for
Compared to slower growing breeds, fast growing breeds have poorer health. They're 3 times as much. They're also more likely to have problems with their teeth. So by that I mean
We've shown that the slower growing birds have better quality meat. So if you're going to be a consumer and spend your money on a product, wouldn't you want to spend it on the better quality product than one that's been shown to be inferior or have more meat quality issues?
Slower growing breeds suffer less and live longer, happier lives. Industry are using fast growing chickens. It's all about raising public awareness. That's when industry is forced to change, when supermarkets are forced to source different types of chickens. This report is about raising that awareness.
Well, I think this trial has really highlighted the need for change. It's demonstrated that conventional breeding programs have serious inherent flaws built into them and are associated with catastrophic health and welfare failure. In order to make a change for chickens, I think we do actually need legislation because the market to date has blatantly failed to ensure their welfare. I think that the breeding companies also need to be mandated to prioritise health and welfare over traditional performance characteristics. It can be hard for consumers to identify higher welfare chicken when they're out shopping, and that's why we're calling for mandatory, simple method of production labelling on meat products.
We can turn this chicken crisis around. If you're in the supermarket, look for a higher welfare label. In the UK, for example, that would be the RSPCA assured label. And over 100 companies have made the commitment to use slower growing chickens, and I hope that this trial really encourages other companies to follow suit.
So industry has a real choice on its hands. It can use fast-growing animals that put on weight so quickly, or a slower-growing breed. These animals lead more natural lives, and so the choice is really clear.
When you couple that with kinder, more humane environments, you really have a situation where the chickens have the chance to live a good life.
Okay, here we go now. Next one. Woo! Yay!
Broiler chickens are young, social animals that have to grow up and play. Just like every kitten and child, they have distinct personality and they're eager to explore. However, they face significant challenges from the moment they're born. Birds are fast growing, collectively bred to grow at a rapid rate. The broilers can grow very fast, around 5 to 6 weeks old. But as their breasts grow, they suffer from serious health problems like painful lesions and heart underbalance in short lives. Crammed into with no access to natural light, broilers spend their days battling for room in the shed, wading through their own excrement, which leads to skin burns, lesions, and abnormalities. Staff pick up puppies like each bird, so
Wait.
many die slowly and painfully from their injuries. What's more, the disgusting habitat in which so many of them live is prone to overheating due to their fast-growing nature, which means that diseases spread quickly in broiler houses. Antibiotics are therefore routinely used, which is dangerous both to the birds themselves and to people. Death from stress, starvation, dehydration, sickness and malformation is also occurring. Traumatizing these birds. Natural behaviors. broiler chickens to lead lives worth living. Millions of young, sentient beings are spending each day stressed, starved, and in pain. The European Commission has the power to change that.
Over 600 million chickens are slaughtered in Australia every year. That's over 24 times the number of humans in Australia. Chickens are intelligent animals. Still in human toddlers. And chickens enjoy doing. This equals they grow to slaughter age in just 35 days, a much shorter lifespan than the at least 7-year lifespan of their relations in the wild. It can be difficult for their young bodies to support this sudden weight gain. Fast growth makes the process more profitable. Some chickens are farmed differently, in free-range or organic systems. However, there can still be welfare issues in these farms as well. Like all sentient animals, chickens deserve to be treated and they're free and safe.
Hi there. This video is going to cover the and the image being shown can be frames in 1 second of animation. A low but that might be the look you want. A cell is an individual image in the animation. You can have a cell on every frame, or you can make a cell last 1 frame if the image doesn't need to change. With that sorted, it's time to jump into Clip Studio Paint. To start a new animation file, go to the File menu and choose New. Next to Project, select Animation. For the sake of this demo, I'm leaving most of the settings as default, just changing the frame rate to 12 and the playback time to 12 frames.
A day in the life of Mau Shrivers, athlete, reporter.
Just a side note, Clip Studio Paint Pro is limited to 24 frames per timeline. Clip Studio Paint EX, on the other hand, allows an unlimited number of frames. You control your animation using the timeline. It may already be at the bottom of your screen, but if you don't see it, click on the Window menu and choose Timeline. You'll start with a single cell of animation nested in a clip that spans your entire playback time. The playback time is indicated by brackets. You can click and drag them to make your animation shorter or longer. The currently active frame is indicated by this red playhead. Click and drag to move it along the timeline. I'll zoom in a bit. You can either use the magnifying glass buttons here or hold down Control and the space bar while you click and drag. Dragging left zooms out and right zooms in. If your animation is long, hold the space bar to bring up the hand tool and then you can click and drag to navigate. Your cell is actually a layer inside of a special animation folder in the Layers. Cells get numbered by default, but you can change it to whatever you want in the Layers panel. It's a good idea to leave a number at the end. The clip is a container that does two things. One, it groups a set of cells together, and two, it determines how long each cell will show. I'll make the clip shorter by dragging this handle. If I draw something on this current cell now and press play, it only shows for part of the animation. When I drag the clip to cover the whole animation, it shows the time. Place the playhead halfway along the clip and click New Animation Cell to add a second cell on that frame. Note that a new layer also appears, and CSP will try to give it an appropriate name automatically. Click Enable Onion Skin to see the previous cell in pale blue. I'll just draw a second picture here. Now if I press play, you can see it switching between the cells. I'll add a new cell halfway between these two.
Welcome.
Now you can see that in addition to showing the previous cell, the onion skin also shows the next cell in green, and you can draw your new cell in between using them both as guides. Hold down the Alt key while clicking and dragging to duplicate a frame. This is reusing the same cell, as you can see by the name. If I make a change here, it's reflected here too.
We always trust brands that are recognized.
Selected and pressing Remove Cell. Be aware that the cell still exists in the animation folder, it's just no longer played on the timeline. If you right-click on the clip, you can see all of the cells in the animation folder here. Clicking on one will add it to the timeline. All of these cells are inside the timeline, and you can move them around as a group. To split a clip, right-click on the frame you want the split to occur and select Split Clip. Now these cells can be moved independently. To merge clips, hold down Control and click to select multiple clips. Then right-click and choose Merge Clips. Only one thing in your animation folder can show at a time, but you can create a second animation folder by clicking here. Say I wanted to use my original drawings as a reference for my final animation. I could turn on the layer color to change the color of the whole folder at once, and turn the opacity down. Remember how I said only one thing in the folder shows at a time? It doesn't have to be a too. This is great if you want to keep your ink and color on separate layers. Right-click to add it to the timeline. Now you can draw on both layers as usual, and they act as one cell. The best part is, when you add a new cell to this animation folder, Clip Studio Paint will imitate the previous cell's folder structure. I'll finish up this animation and be back in a moment. And there we go.
Vitamin C? Save it!
You can use the Layers panel as normal to set up non-animation art, like your background. all layers will still appear as clips on your timeline, so if you change the number of frames of your animation, make sure to adjust their clip accordingly so they
Vitamin C.
I'll draw in a simple background. I want to have a tree move across the bottom of the screen as though the bird is flying past it. I could copy and paste the tree on different cells, but there's an easier way that lets the program do the animating for you. Keyframe animation is a little different because you don't need to create an animation folder. I've just drawn my tree on a normal layer. Select the layer on the timeline and click here to enable keyframes on this layer. Go to the Operation tool and select Objects. The layer is now being treated as a keyframeable object which you can move, rotate, and more. It'd be easier if the object was just the tree though. Right-click on the layer and choose File Object, Convert Layer to File Object. Make sure Area is set to Drawing Area and uncheck Keep Original Layer. Hit OK. Save the file object somewhere convenient. You may see this notification, just hit OK. Now the tree is a separate file object and the bounding box surrounds it directly. Because making the tree a file object technically created a new layer, you'll need to click Enable Keyframes on this layer again. Make sure your playhead is on frame 1. Click this drop-down and select Create Keyframe Linear Interpolation. Now, click Add Keyframe. I'll talk more about this in a dedicated tutorial, but the interpolation type controls how your object moves between keyframes. Linear moves an equal amount every frame, smooth slows down the beginning and end, and hold just pops from one extreme to the other. In this case, the tree is just going to go from one side of the frame to the other, no slowdown needed, so we want linear interpolation. On frame 1, use the Object tool to move the tree outside of the animation. Then, on the last frame, move the tree to the other side. When you have keyframes enabled on, moving the object will automatically add a new keyframe. When you hit play, the program determines where to place the tree on every frame in between the two keyframes. It's as easy as that. I want it to go a little slower, so I'm going to double the length of the animation to 24 frames. The easiest way to do this is to right-click on the last frame and select Insert Frame. Fill in the number of frames you want to add, 12 in this case, and uncheck Selected Layers Only so all the layers are affected. Left-click the keyframe to select it and drag it out to slow the tree's animation down. I also need to repeat my bird's motion. Click and drag to select all cells, then hold down Alt while you click and drag to duplicate them. You can add more trees the same way, and you're done. Now that you've made some fun animations, there's just one thing left: exporting. Fortunately, it's very easy. Go to File, Export Animation, and choose from the options there. You can choose an image sequence, animated GIF, animated PNG, or movie file. An image sequence gives you each frame of your animation as a separate, numbered still image. They're great for long animations, so you don't have to start over at the beginning if something goes wrong during the export. You can also export PNGs with transparency this way if you have an animation you want to overlay on another video. Choose the folder you want to export to at the top. Give your file sequence a name, choose the image type, the export size, and which frames to export. I haven't covered 2D cameras yet, but if your animation uses one, make sure that box is checked. Otherwise, you can ignore it. If you're planning to use the result in a video editing or compositing program, make sure you set the export frame rate to match your final project so your animation plays at the right speed. Hit OK, and your image sequence will be saved into the folder you picked. The settings for animated GIF or PNG files are almost identical, so I'll cover them together. When you select either one, you'll be prompted to give a save location and name. Choose the dimensions, range, and frame rate of your file, and how many times it loops. You can just match the same frame rate as your animation. For animated GIFs, the dithering option may make your exported file look better, but can increase the file size. Likewise, checking color reduction on the animated PNG settings will give you a smaller file at the cost of losing some image quality. PNGs also have an option to delete any blank space around your animated image. Hit OK to save. Animated GIFs are more widely used, but the image quality is not great. Clip Studio Paint does not export animated GIFs with transparency. Animated PNGs never gained wide support, though most modern web browsers will display them fine. The image quality is good, and they support full transparency. When you export a movie, you'll be prompted for a save location and name, and you can also choose from two options, MP4 or AVI. For MP4, you simply choose the width and height you wish to export and the frame rate. If you're uploading straight to social media or YouTube, you can just match your frame rate to your animation. Otherwise, like with the image sequence, if
Let's
you
get
plan to use
organized.
the result in a video editing program, match your frame rate to your final project settings. And again, if your animation makes use of a 2D camera, make sure that box is checked. The settings for AVI are similar, but you'll also see options for transparency and saving as a completely uncompressed file. I'm not going to dive too deep into AVI options here, but read up on them if you need the highest possible quality in your export. And that's the basics of animation in Clip Studio Paint. Like I said, I've got more tutorials in the works, so subscribe and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me cover. Tag me with your animations at Ms. Red Nebula on Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you soon, and happy animating. A big thank you to all of my patrons, with a special shout out to Nova Tier patron Joe C. Phipps. Check out my Patreon if you'd like to help support future content like this.
If you knew what I knew, you could get 10 million subscribers within 6 months. Your first video is not going to get views. Subscribers don't matter. Views don't matter. I mean, they do. So stop sitting there and thinking for months and months on end and just get to work and start uploading. Everything you want as a creator comes from making the best videos possible and thumbnails.
Mr. Beast shares his best YouTube advice all the way from title and thumbnail secrets to growing a channel on YouTube.
It's much easier to get 5 million views on one video than 50,000 views on 100 videos.
He also reveals how he's able to hook in viewers in his videos and what he would do if he started over from scratch.
What advice would you give yourself when you were starting out?
Your videos suck. You think your videos are good, but they suck. You know, they just do. And the sooner you learn how to make good, great videos that people actually want to watch, the sooner you'll get views. I think is the biggest takeaway. Because like when I was 14, I thought my videos were the best in the world. They weren't. They were terrible. Many people are making way better videos than me, but I didn't think that. And I think, you know, to be successful, you kind of have to have a little bit of that ego where you're like, you know, my content's great. You got to believe in it. But also, like, if you have sub 1,000 subscribers, like, there's a good probability your videos just suck. They just do. And you need to make hundreds of videos or 100 videos. I don't know. It depends on the difficulty of your videos. Improve something every time and just, like, get to the point where they don't. When you make good content, you'll blow up. It's not the algorithm. It's not anything. It's just, like, me and most people who are in my position, you just make terrible videos. And that's okay, because you got to make a bunch of videos and improve over time to be great. Like, you don't just pick up a baseball and become an MLB level athlete within a year. You know, it takes many, many, many years, and YouTube's kind of the same way. A lot of people get analysis paralysis, and they'll just sit there and don't plan their first video for 3 months. And yeah, any of you listening, if you, especially if you have 0 videos on your channel, your first video is not going to get views. Period. It's not. Your first 10 are not going to get views. I can very confidently say that. So stop sitting there and thinking for months and months on end and just get to work and start uploading. Like, all you need to do, this applies to people who have not uploaded videos but have dreams of being a YouTuber, is make 100 videos, and improve something every time. Do that. And then on your 101st video, we'll start talking, like maybe you can get some views, but you know, your first 100 are going to suck. There are very freak cases like Liza Koshy or Emma Chamberlain who have really good personalities and it doesn't take them as many videos. And it's just like people who are 7'5" and making the NBA. Like, yes, there are freak cases you can find, but for the average person like us, you know, who don't have these exceptional personalities and, you know, backgrounds in filmmaking, just make 100 videos, improve something each time, and then talk to me on your 101st video.
How do you improve something each time?
The second one, just, I don't know, put more effort into the script. The third one, try to learn a new editing trick. The fourth one, try to figure out a way that you can have better inflections in your voice. The fifth one, try to, you know, study a new thumbnail tip and implement it. The sixth one, try to figure out a new title. There's infinite ways. That's the beauty of content creation online. There's literally infinite ways, from the frame rate to the editing to the filming to the production to the jokes to the pacing to every little thing can be improved, and they can never not be improved. There's literally no such thing as a perfect video.
What YouTube wants is they want people to click on a video and they want to watch it. Like, at its core, that's what it is. Now, you can like draw little lines and go as deep as you want into how to get people to click and to how to get people to watch. I mean, essentially, by studying the algorithm, you'll learn that you're more studying human psychology, right? What do humans want to watch? Anytime you say the word algorithm, just replace it with audience, and it works perfectly. Like, the algorithm didn't like that video? No, the audience didn't like that video. Literally, that's it. If people are clicking and watching, then it gets promoted more, and that's what the algorithm does, is reflect what the people want to a T. And if you deny that, you just make terrible videos that are trying to find a scapegoat.
What makes for a good title? Short?
It's not just short. It's, if someone reads it, are they like, do they have to watch it? Is it just so intrinsically interesting that it's just gonna quit them if they don't click on it? You know what I mean? Ideally, it's a title also that, you know, because the titles don't live in a vacuum, right? So it has to lead into the content. So ideally, the title represents content that you would want to watch for 20 minutes. So if it's a 20-minute video and the title is "I stepped on a bug," the click-through rate is going to be much lower than if it was like a 5-second video. Like, even nuances of the length of the video based against the title will affect whether people want to click it, because sometimes they just don't add up. I mean, it's that, yes, ideally you want it below 50 characters, because above 50 characters on certain devices, you run the chance of it going ... So like, I took a light pole and I saw how many dollar bills I could stack on top, and then it would just go ... because it's too long and it can't finish it. And that's the worst thing, because then people don't even know what they're clicking on, and so it's going to do even worse. Short, simple, ideally, and just so freaking interesting to have to click. And it is like just yeah, but then you have to deliver. The more extreme you are, the more extreme you have to be in the video.
I heard you guys talking about autoplay on YouTube, and I've never considered it. I've always thought about thumbnail, but now on YouTube, videos automatically play.
Of course. So before you film a video, what is the thumbnail, what is the video, and then what's the first 5 seconds, and then what's the first 30 seconds? You know, by the first 5 seconds is like goes with the thumbnail.
Because it's possible that people open YouTube and they don't see it. They don't even see
Especially for us, because like so many people watch videos the autoplay so quick. The thumbnail is irrelevant. That's like that's so interesting. Everything. Yes, 100%. Even more important than ever. Oh, 100%. Yeah, before it was important because you had to convince people to watch. Yeah. Now you have to convince people to click and watch at the same time.
Well, with the first time, that's driving CTR now too.
Yeah, it is 100%. Wow. I roast that. A lot of people who like have boring first 5 seconds. It's brutal. Your title and thumbnail set expectations, and at the very beginning of the video, to minimize drop-off, you want to assure them that those expectations are being met. If you click on a video where, you know, of his, where it's like, Tether is a scam, and then at the very beginning he starts talking about literally anything else, then you are like, oh, this is bull. This isn't what I clicked on. But if at the very start of the video you go, Tether is a scam, and I'm going to teach you why, then it's like, okay, you match the expectations. So at the very beginning, match the expectations, and then you want to see they click on what you're getting, and then top it up graph box so it's easier for people to visualize. We really should drill this home because like the number one thing is like retaining as many people as possible at the start. Because like envision a chart where you lose 35% of your viewers in the first 30 seconds, and then envision one where you only lose 20%. That's 15% more people that are watching, you know, throughout the video than not. And it's not like you made the whole video like a bunch better. You just had a more strategic intro that hooked them. I'm struggling to put this into words. Like, really but like that viewership really that like 2 months, you know, like 10. Like, the thing people good luck. Like it gives you everything you need. Yeah. No wasted words, short, concise. And then you basically want to remove every dull moment. You probably want to find the 10 most critical people you know, make them watch the video, and just roast it. You know, certain things like if I just talk to a camera for 10 seconds without a cut, like a lot of people will just like get bored or they'll lose interest. So like having a B cam and a C cam, and just you can just talk for 10 seconds, but 3 seconds in cutting to a B cam and then a C cam. Like now it's more interesting, even though it's interesting. It's not tasting on top. Like that right there isn't even super complex, so that would already put you in the upper echelon of YouTube. It's hard for a lot of people. People, for whatever reason, like they just drag it out. A lot of vlog channels do it. It's like eating $100 ice cream, and they'll be like, "I'm gonna eat $100 ice cream." But first, and then it's like earlier in the day, and it's just stuff that has nothing to do with what you clicked on. It's like them birthday shopping for their mom. And it's like, that's not why I came here.
Now, if you're looking to grow your YouTube channel, I gotta tell you about this before we get into the rest of Mr. Beast's genius advice. And that is that we at Think Media are doing a free YouTube challenge. During this channel, you guys check out
people watch something, the more likely they are to keep watching. So you don't have to try as hard in the hypothetical back half of the video to do in the front. Like even right now, we're so deep into this where a lot of people listening are probably just going to keep listening relatively close to the end unless we just have a really short part of this conversation. Because they're just in it, they're immersed, and so a big like to really boil it down to a simple level. You just want to get people where they're immersed in the content, and then just kind of hold them there.
The thing is, it's all knowledge. It really is, and like every time I say this, people debate it to the end of time on Twitter. But I don't care. Like I could start a new channel tomorrow with not using my face or my voice, like without ever promoting it. In 6 months, 20 million subscribers. So it's really knowledge. Like yeah, you do what I do. Yep. It really is just knowledge. They don't, and everyone has excuses, and they're always. To this day, I still see all this. I guess you accept that it is knowledge. 10,000 days. Whatever it is, if you want to be less hardcore. But and like actually figuring out, you know, what makes a good video, what does my audience want, how can I elevate, and then you take that knowledge and you just assume that I will never understand what the perfect video is, and every single day I just need to be devoted to learning as much as possible and improving as much as possible, and I gotta improve every video as much as I can. And there you go. It does not require money to make. I put the corporate sales go through 10 plus. I super good. I like video when you it's a dangerous trap because then the viewers notice that the quality isn't as good and it makes them less likely to watch, and I think it hurts your longevity. A lot of times people, oh boy, it's like they think their videos are better than they are, honestly, and
tell them, Jimmy, tell them.
I mean, they do, and you have to that, and they have horrible friend groups because you really are like the type of YouTubers you hang around, and so like a lot of times I'm just like, what you're saying is wrong. Who told you this? They're like, oh, this guy, and it's like, well, they're wrong. It's not true. There's no such thing as a perfect video. Like, someone should always call you and get on your video because it could be better. Like, that's because imagine if someone does that every video and you upload hundreds, if not 1,000 videos over the next 10 years, and every single time someone's critiquing you and you're applying what they're critiquing. Like, imagine the compound effect over that time span. It's invaluable. People think it's like, oh, well, it's all like CTR and stuff like that, but a big thing that everyone fucking underestimates is it's what was your experience with your last video? If people loved the last video of yours that they watched, they're more likely to watch your next video. Okay, holy crap, that was great. Oh my god.
Tayo naka-pro 1 second lang yun. Kasi parang pagkakalang ko yun, yung napanood ko kasi yan. Yata siya naka-pro eh.
So how can I, like, if I get inspired by something, how can I do that but 100 times better and make it my own? Because a lot of people are just like, oh, Mr. Beast did that.
Daming distraction. Ano ba yun?
Yun mo kung ano yung naka-install dyan, kung di pro yun or what.
Ito? Saan ba yun?
Ikaw mo, hindi mo alam kung yung version nyo na dyan naka-install?
Hindi ko makita kung saan ba.
Dito.
Hindi tayo naka-pro.
Ano ba yung pagkakasabit mo sa kanina?
Ulitin ko ulit, ganun.
O, kalurin mo ulit. Hindi ako naniniwala na ano.
O, sige na nga, o.
Hi there, my name's Sarah, and this video is going to cover the basics of animation in Clip Studio Paint. I'll have additional tutorials up soon to dive into more detail. First, let's talk briefly about cells, frames, and frame rates. 1 second of animation is divided into a series of frames, and the image being shown can change each frame. The number of frames in 1 second of animation is called the frame rate. 24 FPS, or frames per second, is common in hand-drawn animation. A lower FPS, like 12 or 8, is choppier, but that might be the look you want. A cell is an individual image in the animation. You can have a cell on every frame, or you can make a cell last.
Guess ko na. Ganito, yun.
With that sorted, it's time to jump into Clip Studio Paint. To start a new animation file, go to the File menu and choose New.
Alam ko na yan, taas yun.
Next to Project, select Animation. For the sake of this demo, I'm leaving most of the settings as default, changing the frame rate to 12 and the playback time to 12 frames. Click OK to create the animation file. Just a side note, Clip Studio Paint Pro is limited to 24 frames per timeline. Clip Studio Paint EX, on the other hand, allows an unlimited number of frames. You control your animation using the timeline. It may already be at the bottom of your screen, but if you don't see it, click on the Window menu, and choose Timeline. You'll start with a single cell of animation nested in a clip that spans the entire playback time. Playback time is indicated by two brackets. Click and drag them to make your animation shorter. The active frame is indicated by drag to move it along the timeline. I'll zoom in a bit. You can either use the magnifying glass buttons here, or hold down Ctrl and the spacebar while you click and drag. Dragging left zooms out, and right zooms in. If your animation is long, hold the spacebar to bring up the hand tool and drag to navigate. The cell is actually a layer. Animation is a layer. It's numbered by default. It's a good idea to leave a number. A clip is a container that does cells together. It determines how long each cell will show. Some make it shorter by grabbing the scan button. When this current cell is pressed play, it shows for part of the animation. When I drag the clip to cover the full animation, it shows the whole time. Place the playhead out of the clip and click Animation Cell. Frame. The layer also appears. You will try to give it an appropriate name. Click into the onion skin to see the previous cell and tail. Draw a section here. Now as I press play, you can see it switching between cells. I'll add a new cell. Now you can see that in the previous cell, skin, and you can draw your new cell in between using them both sides. Hold down the Alt and drag to duplicate a frame. This is reusing the same cell, as you can see by the name. If I make a change here, it's reflected here too. You can delete a cell by clicking to select it and pressing Delete. Be aware that the cell still exists in the no longer placed on the timeline. Right-click on the clip, all of the cells in the animation folder appear, clicking on the timeline. All of these cells are inside the same clip, which means we can move them around as a group. To split a clip, right-click on the frame you want the split to occur and select Split Clip. Now these cells can be moved independently. To merge clips, hold down Ctrl and click to select multiple clips. Then right-click and choose Merge Clips. Only one thing in your animation folder can show at a time, but you can create a second animation folder by clicking here. Say I wanted to use my original drawings as a reference for my final animation. I can turn on the layer color to change the color. Remember how I said only one thing to show to the layer? Great, you want to keep your ink and color on separate layers. Right-click to add it to the timeline. Now you can draw on both layers as usual, and they act as one cell. The best part is, when you add a new cell to this animation folder, Clip Studio Paint will imitate the previous cell's folder structure. I'll finish up this animation and be back in a moment. All layers will appear as a timeline, so you can transfer frames simple background. I want to have a tree move across the bottom of the screen as though the bird is flying past it. I could copy and paste the tree on different cells, but there's an easier way that lets the program do the animating for you: keyframes. Keyframe animation is a little different. I've just drawn a tree on a molded layer. Select the layer on the timeline and click here to enable keyframes on this layer. Go to the Operation tool and select the Object subtool. The layer is now being treated as a keyframeable object which you can move, rotate, and more. The tree bow. Right-click on the layer and choose File Object. Make sure Drawing Area and tap Keep Original Layer. Hit OK. Save the file object somewhere convenient. You may see this notification, just hit OK. Now the tree is a separate file object and the bounding box surrounds it directly. Because making the tree a file object technically created a new layer, you'll need to click Enable Keyframes on this layer again. Make sure your playhead is on frame 1. Click this drop-down and select Create Keyframe Linear Interpolation. Now, click Add Keyframe. More about this in a dedicated tutorial, but the interpolation type defaults for object slows down the beginning of 10, from one extreme to the other. In this case, the tree is just going to go from one side of the frame to the other. No slowdown needed, so we want linear interpolation. On frame 1, use the Object tool to move the tree outside of the animation. Then, on the last frame, move the tree to the other side. On, the object will automatically add to the frame. Play, the program determines where to put every frame between the two keyframes. Use that. I want it to go a little slower, so I'm going to double the length of the animation to 24 frames. The easiest way to do this is to right-click on the last frame and select Insert Frame. Fill in the number of frames you want to add, 12 in this case, and uncheck Selected Layers Only so all the layers are affected. Left-click the keyframe selected and drag it out to slow the tree animation down. I also use my first motion. Drag to select all cells, then hold down Alt while you click and drag to duplicate them. You can add more trees the same way, and you're done. Now that you've made some fun animations, there's just one thing left: exporting. Fortunately, it's business. Go to File, Export Animation, and choose Animated PNG, or movie file. An image sequence gives you each frame of your animation as a separate, numbered still image. They're great for long animations, so you don't have to start over at the beginning if something goes wrong during the export. You can also export PNGs with transparency this way if you have an animation you want to overlay on another video. You want to export at the top. File sequence and name, choose the image type, the export size, and which frames to export. I haven't covered 2D cameras yet, but if your animation uses one, make sure that box is checked. Otherwise, you can ignore it. If you're planning to use the result in a video editing or compositing program, make sure you set the export frame rate to match your final project so your animation focuses around it. Hit OK, and your image will be saved in the folder you picked. The settings for animated GIF or PNG files are almost identical, so I'll cover them together. When you select either one, you'll be prompted to give a save location and name. Choose the dimensions, range, and frame rate of your file, and how many times it loops. The deferring option may make your exported file look better, but can increase the file size. Likewise, checking color reduction on the animated PNG settings will give you a smaller file at the cost of losing some image quality. PNGs also have an option to delete any blank space around your animated image. Hit OK to save. GIFs are more widely used, but the image quality is not great. Clip Studio Paint does not export animated GIFs with transparency. Animated PNGs never gained wide support, though most modern web browsers will display them fine. The image quality does not support full transparency. When you export a movie, you have to save your name. And you can also choose MP4 or AVI. For MP4, the width and height you set, and if you're uploading straight to the match your frame rate to your animation, like with the image video editing program, match your frame rate to your final project setting. And again, if your animation makes use of a 2D camera, make sure that box is checked. The settings for AVI are similar, but you'll also see options for transparency and saving as a completely uncompressed file. I'm not going to dive too deep into AVI options here, but read up on them if you need the highest possible quality in your export. And that's the basics of animation in Clip Studio Paint. Like I said, I've got more tutorials in the works, so subscribe and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me cover. Tag me with your animations at Ms. Red Nebula on Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you soon, and happy animating.
I'm just gonna do it.
How do I make a good thumbnail? How do I get people to click my video?
You want it to be simple. You want them to be able to, like, when they're scrolling through their suggested or homepage or whatever touch point, you want them to instantly be able to understand what you're conveying. And you want them to feel some type of emotion. You know what I mean? The way I like to phrase it is you want to make it so interesting or spike their curiosity or whatever emotion so much that, like, if they don't click it, they'll wonder, you know, when they're before they go to bed, like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like,